Hi, everyone. I hope you're having a great week. I wanted to spend one extra video talking about some modeling techniques in Rhino that may be helpful for the impossible object assignment. I know I talked to a few of you outside of this context one-on-one, and this technique can be really powerful and easy and useful. So I'm going to spend just a few minutes demonstrating how you can use it. So as per usual, I'm going to disappear off the screen so that we have full access to our Rhino windows, and I'll see you back here in a sec. Okay, so as we, I think, learned the first or second day of working with Rhino, there's a kind of a hierarchy of form in Rhino. There's the idea that you would first have a curve. I'm just going to review that for you really quickly. A curve, and then you would have something like maybe a surface. So I'm just going to make a quick surface here. A surface, and then from that surface we can go to the solid menu, extrude surface, which is exactly the same as extrude planar curve, straight. And we can wind up with something that's called a solid or a polysurface. Now this polysurface, because we made it through that extrusion method, it is going to be kind of perfectly closed. In other words, all of the surface's edges are going to be perfectly touching. So it is indeed a so-called solid. If we want extra sort of confirmation that it is a solid, we can go to the solid menu and use the create solid method. And you can select it, and it basically, if it doesn't say down here, not a solid, then this is a solid. The other thing, and this is basically, using this kind of polysurface method is one way to do it. The other kind of easier way to get directly to a solid, as I kind of have pointed out a couple times, is this menu where you can make a solid. Kind of from these preset options. And we've used quite a few of these in the videos, but let's go ahead and maybe use one that we haven't used so far, like the ellipsoid is a great one. It's kind of a little more organic looking. So I'm just going to first define a center point, and then I'm going to give it one axis. So I'm just going to hit the shift key so it's up on a straight axis, and then I'm defining a second axis, and then you define a third axis. So it's basically like a circle, but it has an extra sort of axis. So what happens here? What has two extra axes, as a matter of fact. So now what we're looking at is we just have two solids, and they could be any solid, anything that's a solid. And this could be also, a solid that maybe you've worked on before. So what we can do is one thing that's really kind of a common technique in 3D modeling is to use one of these solids as a cutting object for the other. We've previewed a somewhat similar technique when we split the surfaces. But this is a way to kind of take an entire object against another object. And so what you want to do, I'm moving the object into place so that it kind of fully intersects the other object. And I'll just move my view a little bit so you can see here what's going on. So now you can see we have this object that's kind of in full intersection. It doesn't have to cross all the way through the object. It could be just partially intersecting. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to select both of these objects, and I'm going to go up to the solid menu, and I'm going to select the Boolean2 Objects method, which the Boolean2 Objects method is actually a combination of all four of these, where you can decide which method you want. So I'll show you what I mean in just a second. When I click it, select two objects to Boolean, apparently you have to click on them. And then after you click on them, you are basically asked to click to iterate through Boolean's results. Okay, so you can click anywhere on the screen and it will walk you through different ways of using those objects kind of against one another. So right now, if you look at the bottom of the screen in this little bar here, we're looking at an intersection. So this is a method that only shows the intersection of the two objects. This is called A minus B, where it takes one and subtracts it from the other. There's also B minus A, which is just taking one and taking one of the other ones and subtracting it from the other. And then there's also inverse intersection, which is kind of fun, and union. So union, it may not look like it does much, but it actually just eliminates the intersection inside. So if we were to look at this in ghosted view, or if I'll accept that and turn this into ghosted view, you can see that those surfaces are now gone and that it's kind of a singular shell. So union can be particularly good for 3D printing. But to kind of think about this from maybe a more kind of like model construction perspective, let's go back to what we had. Let's just do it one more time for practice. So if we go to Boolean2 Objects, we can select both of these poly surfaces. And once you select it, it just instantly kind of kicks into the mode there. Starts with union, and then it goes to intersection and A minus B, et cetera, et cetera. So I tend to use this pretty frequently as kind of A minus B just makes sense to me, where you're using one object to subtract from another. So I'm going to go ahead and commit to this. Now, what you can do here is if we wanted to, let's say we wanted to build some sort of, additional thing onto this model, we could certainly do that. We can go ahead and just take this poly surface and we could do another Boolean operation on this surface. So one thing that we could go ahead and do is just generate another solid. Let's do a sphere this time. And I'm going to maybe do it like right here. And we could actually now take this chunk out if we wanted to. So let's go ahead and do that just for the sake of argument. So we're going to Boolean2 Objects, and I usually will select the object that I'm kind of want to be subtracted from first, although it really doesn't matter because it does both of them. It does either scenario. And so now you can see it's subtracted that sphere from that solid as well. So it obviously isn't the only way to make objects, but it is definitely a really powerful way to make objects. I want to walk you through, lastly, I want to walk you through a scenario where this is not going to work. So I'm going to go ahead and maybe use one of the methods that we've been using before to create a surface. So we'll use our old Revolve method. Just very straightforward, easy Revolve here. So we can go to Surface, Revolve, and then we're going to go ahead and make, an axis. I'll hit the Shift key so it's kind of straight. So let's go ahead and make this a full circle. And so, there's an object. Why don't I take this and bash it against this again? Well, okay, sure. I'll try it, I guess. So this one, I'll make it kind of intersect with this, maybe this corner, to kind of shave the corner off there. And so I'll go now to Boolean2 Objects, and it's going to ask for two objects to Boolean. So we can select this one, and that's fine. We can also select this one and, well, that's actually incredible. So that should fail and it didn't. In general, if you have holes in things, they're not going to work successfully. So it could actually just the form would basically straight up say, it's not a solid, I'm not going to do it. But in this case, apparently, it looks like we got really lucky. So if it fails, I guess I will say that is why. If it fails, it's because you may have some kind of like gaps between surfaces. So for example, I'll sort of like push the issue and make it fail just so we can learn from this. So I'll go ahead and get rid of this, and I'll just make a different iteration of this. So if I go to Surface Revolve, I'm actually going to not revolve all the way around the object. I'm going to leave it with a split in the middle. So what that's going to look like is I'm going to start on this axis, and I'm just going to push it kind of around to here. So it literally has like kind of a tear in it, or a gap. And so now if I rotate this by clicking here, the center of rotation can be, we can just eyeball it, to be honest, and then kind of point this towards the form. And then, so now if I were to try to Boolean this, I mean, if this works, I'm going to be absolutely stunned. So Boolean2 Objects. I'll select this first because I know this will work. Aha, failed to Boolean, nothing done. So that is pretty much the classic error message. And basically what it's saying is that it can't find a sort of like consistent, surface to cut this object on. And so if your cutting object, this is what would be called a cutting object, is not, solid or has gaps in it, it will not work. And vice versa. If this has a ton of gaps in it, probably, it seems like it's more forgiving. So it would be on the side that you're actually, doing the thing on. Then that, would prevent you from using this function. So this can be a super powerful way of modeling, and it's basically the opposite. It's the opposite of what we've been doing up to this point. We've been modeling additively. And this is a way that you can still model additively by stacking shapes together or by adding shapes to other shapes. But this is a way that you can sort of think about, using whole shapes or whole objects as cutting objects, rather than just single surfaces, as we demonstrated in the table example. So I hope you enjoy this hot tip, and I'm going to come at you with some more videos very soon. Talk to you all soon. Bye.